Over the summer I have covered hundreds of miles on the NIU KQi 300X. I've put it through a wide range of performance tests and simulated wear and tear to see how it holds up over time. I've benchmarked everything from speed, hill climbing and acceleration to real-world range and braking performance. In this review, I'll dive into that data. No BS, just my honest experience with the 300X. I'll also compare it to popular competitors so you can see which one fits you the best. So the 300X is basically a beefed up version of the KQi 3 Max, which is one of my favorite scooters to date, but we finally have something with suspension from NIU. This is something I've been waiting for years basically, and they've also increased the motor power and added turn signals and a half twist throttle. So does this thing beat the Ninebot Max G2, and is it really that much of an upgrade from the KQi 3 Max? Let's dive in. Let me just start by saying that the 300X is fast. We've got an upgraded 500 watts rear motor, which peaks at 1000 watts, and you definitely feel the difference over pretty much any comparable scooter. I clocked a top speed of 23.6 miles per hour, which is definitely up there with the best, but I especially felt the power in the acceleration. I averaged 15 miles per hour in 3.84 seconds, which is 20% faster than the Ninebot G2 and around 15% faster than the KQi 3 Max. It's just a night and day difference. If you're not aware of this when you try it out first, you'll definitely be caught off guard. I've read some people find it almost too powerful, but you can always put it in chill mode via the app. I would have liked even more control over the acceleration strength, because right now you only have two options in the app, and I think having something like a dial from 1 to 10 would be better. The 300X pulls really strongly on hills too. In my hill tests, it maintained 15 miles per hour on an 8% grade and absolutely crushed a 17% incline averaging around 10 miles per hour. Pretty much the only comparable scooter I've tested that can keep up is the VMAX VX2 Pro, and that scooter doesn't have any suspension. The motor performance overall is just incredibly good. It's perfect for both steep hills and heavier riders who may need a bit more power, and the performance retention is also really strong. Before we continue, I want to tell you that I've made what I think is the ultimate scooter finder tool. It's been months in the making and I'm really proud of the result. You can compare over 300 models based on basically every spec imaginable. And here's what makes it truly special. It incorporates live pricing. This means you can easily find the models that offer the most range or speed per dollar or whatever you're interested in. You can also make a free account to set up price alerts for your favorite models. You'll get notified when prices drop to your target. Plus you can see the best deals right now based on real historical price data. No fake sales or inflated before prices. Check the link in the description or jump over to ERideHero.com to make your account and start using the tool. It's completely free. You can support my work by purchasing your next scooter through my affiliate links in the description or on my website. Now, back to the review. So the 300X has a 48 volts battery with a capacity of 608 watt hours. NIU advertises up to 37 miles of range, but as you may know, these manufacturer claims are almost impossible to get in the real world. I always run 3 range tests to give you a realistic picture of what you can expect. In my speed priority test, I got 22.3 miles. In my regular test, I hit 26.8 miles, and lastly in my range priority test, I got 30.4 miles. Now, how does it stack up against the competition? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The 300X actually scores 15% lower than the KQi 3 Max in my tests despite having the same battery capacity. That difference likely just comes down to the heavier build and the more powerful motor. It also falls a bit short from the Ninebot Max G2 and the VMAX VX2 Pro. Next up I looked at the range efficiency, so basically how far it goes relative to its weight, and the 300X scores 0.55 miles per pound. That's on par with the Ninebot Max G2, but understandably it can't quite match the efficiency of some of the zero suspension scooters I've tested. So this scooter isn't gonna be breaking any range records, but it's still enough for most commutes and longer rides, especially if you're willing to dial back the speed a bit. Just keep in mind that if your main focus in a scooter is range, there are alternatives that may be better for you. For me, the KQi 300X is a 9 out of 10 ride quality wise. It's easily the most comfortable new scooter and a huge step up from the KQi 3s. First off, we've got really large 10.5 inch CST tires, which is the same as we know from the eMove Cruiser, just really heavy duty tires. They do a notably better job at absorbing road vibrations, and the front suspension is a game changer, especially on rougher roads. They've got about 30 to 40 millimeters of travel. Now, as a 175 pounds rider, I found the suspension well balanced, but I imagine lighter riders will find it a touch on the stiff side. For heavier riders, it'll feel super cushioned. It doesn't quite match the dual suspension on the Ninebot Max G2, but for me, this is the second most comfortable scooter in its class. Braking performance is great too. We've got dual disc brakes and regen here, which are incredibly effective. I measured a stopping distance in 10.7 feet, which is some of the best at this price. NIU could even have gotten away with just using dual drum brakes instead for less maintenance, but you can't really fault the stopping power. The regen brake is super smooth as well. NIU are one of the few brands to get it right in my opinion. You can adjust the strength in the app, and personally I found the medium setting to be just right for me. Now the deck and overall dimensions really make this thing super comfortable for longer rides. The deck is super spacious, and I love the arch towards the back, which act as a footrest. That's really nice for shifting your weight when you're accelerating or braking. Another thing that doesn't get mentioned enough is the ground clearance. As with all NIU scooters, it's quite low here at 2.9 inches, but this is actually part of the reason why NIU scooters feel so good to ride. It gives a low center of gravity, which makes the scooter feel grounded and make it handle much better. This is the kind of scooter you could ride with just one hand, although you shouldn't, but it just goes to say that it's top class stability. The cockpit is well designed and user friendly too. The display is crisp and fairly readable in all light conditions, and I love that NIU has added turn signals. It's just something that every commuter scooter should have. They work great, but I think they cut off a bit too soon. Hopefully they can address that with firmware. Overall, the NIU KQi 300X is just a really good ride. It's super comfortable on rough roads, you just always feel in control, and there's enough space to change your stance and accommodate larger riders. When it comes to portability, the 300X does a pretty good job. At 48.7 pounds, this scooter isn't exactly lightweight, but considering the performance and specs, I think it makes sense. NIU has carried over the folding setup from the KQi 3 series. Through the years, I've tested more than 70 electric scooters, and to this day, it's hands down the best I've tried. It ticks all the boxes, it's easy to operate and has no flex or wiggle whatsoever. There's also a safety switch like any good folding mechanism should have, and then the locking point at the rear fender with a release button is what makes it special. You don't have to prepare or line anything up for folding, it just works. The weight distribution for carrying is nicely balanced, but it's definitely not something I want to lug up to the third floor every day. If you plan to fit it into a small car trunk or take it on public transport, do note that the folded dimensions are also somewhat big. All in all, I'll give the 300X a 7 out of 10 on portability. It's clear that NIU has focused on performance and comfort, but they've done everything else right to make it as manageable as possible. It's still notably lighter than the Ninebot Max G2, and for a suspension scooter, it strikes a good balance. When it comes to build quality and safety, the 300X is an absolute tank. From the moment you step on it, you can just feel the quality standard. It's the kind of scooter that inspires confidence, and that feeling only grew the more I rode it. So NIU have basically taken the rock-solid foundation of the KQi 3 Max and elevated it. They've added new features to boost both safety and comfort, while keeping the price point steady on what the KQi 3 Max previously sold for. NIU are eventually going to phase out the Max and make this their main flagship scooter. Now, I've really pushed this scooter and also simulated some wear and tear, for instance by operating the folding mechanism and kickstand 500 times. There's no signs of weakness or squeaking whatsoever. The brake calipers are high quality as well. They clamp the rotors from both sides, which gives more consistent braking and better heat dissipation. And the fenders are thick and disperse water well. Speaking of water, the 300X has an IP55 rating. As someone living in rainy Denmark, I can confirm that it performs and holds up well in wet conditions. We have over 170 rainy days per year, so I've been caught in the rain several times, and every time it's made it home with no hardware issues. There are no obvious weak points or gaps in the build, everything seems protected to a high standard. Visibility is another area where the 300X hits it home. You've got the high-mounted halo light and a wide tail light. Both are really bright, and you also got some reflectors on the sides. I also really love the always on mode. This just keeps them running at a lesser strength. Here in Denmark, I am required by law to always have the lights turned on, so this is perfect for daytime. The turn signals are super bright as well. They're visible from pretty much any angle, but as mentioned before, they automatically cut off after around 5 seconds, which is a bit annoying when waiting at a stoplight. And then just a quick mention about the app. NIU has definitely gotten some slack over their app earlier, and it's been well deserved, but I think it works pretty well on the 300X. The setup is pretty quick once you have an account, and unlike some of the earlier models, you can actually swap speed modes right on the dashboard. All in all, I just can't find anything to fault on the NIU 300X. It's incredibly well built and based on a proven design. So the 300X scores a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. So let's wrap up with the big question, who should buy the 300X? For me, this scooter is just a masterclass in design. It rides like a dream, and it's built like a tank, and it absolutely crushes it on hills. In terms of comfort, it's only second to the Ninebot Max G2, but it has notably stronger motor performance. It's pretty much the holy grail for hilly adventures or heavier riders with a demanding and rough commute. So, who should buy it? Well, for me this basically feels like a scooter for everyone who has the budget for it. It's perfect for those of you who need strong motor performance and maybe have hills to tackle. It's also perfect for poor road conditions or riding on wet roads, where you need big tires for traction and a good visibility setup. And the safety and stability are just top notch as well. Now for alternatives, here are a few recommendations. If maximum range and motor performance is your priority, check out the VMAX VX2 Pro GT. It has a larger battery, but you do sacrifice the suspension. If you want the absolute best in ride quality and don't mind added weight and less motor performance, check out the Ninebot Max G2. Lastly, if you're after something a little more budget friendly and don't need the suspension, now may be a good time to save money on the KQi 3 Pro and Max, but do note that they will be phased out in the future. The 300p is also an obvious choice. If you do decide to go for the 300X or any other scooter for that matter, buying through my affiliate link in the description supports the channel with a small commission at no extra cost to you. This allows me to keep doing what I do and directly allows me to buy new scooters to test in the future. I really appreciate all the support. Thanks for watching.